His worst nightmare has come true. Her response to her father's life or death drama.
Harry called Archie his African...
The first tremor didn't come from a courtroom or a palace balcony. It came from a whisper inside Westminster. Not shouted, not announced, just quietly logged. According to parliamentary insiders, a sealed procedural motion was filed late on a Thursday evening after most staff had gone home after the corridors had emptied and the cameras had powered down. It wasn't labeled explosive. It wasn't labeled urgent. It was labeled administrative clarification. And yet, everyone who read the internal summary understood exactly what it meant.
Think so. William's very matter of fact, but let's...
A verification inquiry had been triggered. Not public, not adversarial, but official. And the name at the center of it wasn't Meghan Markle. It was Archie. The inquiry, sources say, was activated within hours of Tom Bower's now infamous remark at a London literary event when the veteran journalist leaned back in his chair, fixed the audience with that familiar fox-like stare, and said something that instantly changed the temperature of the room. The public, he said calmly, has never been told the truth about Archie's birth.
Like becoming a new mum, and tell us a little bit about baby Sussex, as we're calling him.
He didn't shout it. He didn't dramatize it. He let the sentence sit there heavy and unresolved like an accusation that didn't yet know its own shape. By the time he added, "And I'm prepared to defend that statement," the damage was already done. Within hours, British media lit up. By morning, American networks had picked it up. By midday, social media had turned it into a feeding frenzy of speculation, disbelief, outrage, and denial. But behind the noise, something else was happening. Something quieter and far more dangerous. Because in the United Kingdom, certain claims don't require proof to cause action. They require concern. And concern is exactly what reached Kensington Palace the following afternoon. Delivered not by courier, not by aide, but by a plain, unmarked package left at a private entrance. No return address, no seal, only a handwritten note scrolled across the front in uneven ink. For the future of the monarchy, open personally. Prince William did exactly that. Date to Archie. Archie, who was born on May 6th, inside, according to sources close to the palace, was a thick dossier. No logos, no official letterhead, just pages and pages of meticulously organized material. Timelines, photographs, anomalies, witness accounts presented not as declarations, but as questions. The first page carried a title that made William's stomach drop. Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor, a timeline review. What followed wasn't a declaration of wrongdoing. It was something far more unsettling. Inconsistencies, dates that didn't quite align, public statements that subtly contradicted one another, hospital references that shifted depending on the source, announcements that were revised after the fact. Even the language used by palace spokespeople, passive, unusually careful, oddly imprecise. Nothing in the file said this is false. It said this does not align. And alignment in royal matters is everything. One section focused on the Portland hospital announcement, its timing, its wording, the absence of customary medical confirmations. Another highlighted photographic anomalies from the pregnancy period, not as proof of deception, but as visual irregularities that had sparked repeated internal questions over the years. Then came the detail that reportedly froze William in place. A witness account, anonymous, carefully anonymized, but precise in one chilling way. The witness referenced a physical detail about Archie. Something never released publicly, never photographed, never discussed outside. The immediate family. A mark, small, distinctive, known only to those who had seen the child up close. William remembered it. He had seen it once briefly during an awkward family gathering years earlier. A fleeting moment. No one else present had commented. It wasn't something you forget. And yet here it was described with exact accuracy by someone who should not have known. That was the moment William reportedly ordered a sealed internal verification. Nothing dramatic, nothing public, just a quiet directive to confirm, cross-check, and review. No leaks, he said. No assumptions. But once a question enters an institution, It does not leave quietly. Across the Atlantic, Meghan Markle was already spiraling. The headlines hit her like blunt force trauma. Tom Bower challenges Archie birth narrative. Royal baby questions reignite. Parliament sources confirm internal review. Her phone didn't stop vibrating. Lawyers, advisors, PR strategists. Everyone talking at once. Everyone insisting on calm. Everyone asking the same question she couldn't answer out loud. How much do they know? She reportedly demanded an immediate legal response. Letters drafted, warnings issued, threats of defamation prepared. But Tom Bower's reply, when it came, was devastating in its simplicity. Proceed as you wish, it read. Discovery benefits truth. That was when fear set in. Because discovery is the one thing narrative control cannot survive. What made it worse? What pushed Meghan from anger into something closer to panic was Harry's silence. No statement, no reassurance, no public defense, not even a quiet leak to friendly outlets. For 48 hours, he disappeared from the conversation entirely. Commentators noticed. So did the public. What kind of father says nothing? One headline asked, "Is silence protection or admission?" Asked another. In London, the political side of the story was moving faster than the media realized. The inquiry, insiders stressed, wasn't about scandal. It was about constitutional clarity, lineage, documentation, precedent. No accusations had been made, but questions had been logged, and once logged, they could not be erased. Back in California, the pressure cracked something. Earth, a strange new rumor began spreading. And unlike many of the others, this one seemed capable of growing legs. Could it be that, as many have come to suspect, Harry and Meghan are lying about? During a heated, off-their-ord exchange, according to multiple fictionalized accounts, Meghan reportedly confronted Tom Bower directly through intermediaries. The conversation was tense, emotional, and unguarded. And in that moment, something slipped. Not a confession, not an admission, a phrase. The woman who gave birth. The sentence reportedly stopped there. But it was enough because in narratives like this, it's not what's said that matters most. It's what's revealed unintentionally. And from that moment on, the story stopped being about gossip. It became about records, about verification, about what happens when a tightly managed story meets an institution that survives. On documentation rather than belief. And somewhere between Westminster's quiet corridors and a Montecito mansion built on perfect appearances, the question no one wanted to ask out loud began to take shape. Not who is Archie, but how much of the story was ever complete. Or just
posting a lot more pictures. It has drawn a lot of attention to the controversies surrounding her kids,
And once that question exists, no amount of outrage can make it disappear. This wasn't just about a child anymore. It was about whether truth, once delayed, could still be contained, and whether the monarchy built on continuity, legitimacy, and public trust was prepared for what might happen if it couldn't. The private jet touched down at RAF Northolt under a sky the color of bruised steel. Harry stepped onto British soil like a man walking into a courtroom where the verdict had already been written. No cameras, no cheers, just a waiting convoy and the suffocating weight of history pressing down on his shoulders. He hadn't told Meghan he was coming. He hadn't told anyone. For the first time in years, he made a decision alone. Windsor Castle loomed ahead. Ancient and unyielding inside a secluded room far from tourists and ceremonial corridors. Prince William waited. No aides, no quarters. Just two brothers and a truth that had been circling them like a vulture for years. William didn't stand when Harry entered. He didn't smile either. He looked exhausted, older than his years, the weight of the crown already etched into his face. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. "Did she give birth to Archie?" William asked flatly. Harry froze, his mouth opened, then closed. Again. For a moment, he looked like the frightened younger brother he used to be. The boy who hid behind William at their mother's funeral. "I don't know," Harry finally said, his voice cracking. Not for certain. That was all William needed to hear. He pushed a folder across the table. Inside were copies of the dossier, the midwife's signed statement, timelines cross-referenced with Harry's own travel records, and one final document that made Harry's blood run cold, a preliminary legal opinion from constitutional experts. If Archie's birth was misrepresented, his place in the line of succession could be legally challenged. Parliament would have grounds to act. "This is bigger than Meghan," William said quietly. "Bigger than you. If Parliament concludes there was deception, they won't stop at stripping titles. They'll demand answers from the palace itself." Harry buried his face in his hands. "She said it was the only way. She said they'd never accept us otherwise." William leaned back, pain flashing across his face. "Did you believe her?" Harry didn't answer.
Certificate, it shows Archie Harrison Mountbatten.
Across the Atlantic, Meghan was unraveling. News alerts stacked endlessly on her phone. Sources whispering about parliamentary inquiries, senior royals refusing comment, legal analysts openly discussing succession implications. The silence from Harry was the loudest sound of all. When her lawyer finally reached her, his voice carried none of its usual confidence. "Westminster isn't backing down," he said. "If this goes public, discovery will be brutal. Medical records, witnesses, everything." Meghan laughed, sharp and brittle. "They won't dare. I'll burn it all down first." But even as she said it, fear crept in. For the first time, she understood she wasn't fighting tabloids or gossip bloggers anymore. She was fighting institutions that had survived wars, abdications, and scandals far worse than hers. Back in London, Tom Bower watched it all unfold with clinical calm. He hadn't released his final evidence yet. He didn't need to. The pressure alone was doing the work for him. When asked by a reporter if he feared legal retaliation, he smiled thinly. "Truth has a way of surfacing," he said, "especially when too many people are invested in keeping it buried." Behind closed doors, Parliament moved swiftly. A small cross-party committee was formed under the guise of constitutional clarification. No press releases, no grand announcements. But the message was clear. The monarchy was being audited from the inside. At Windsor, William stood by a window overlooking the grounds as Harry prepared to leave. "You still have a choice," William said. "Tell the truth now, privately, or let it explode publicly. Either way, it's coming." Harry nodded, tears streaming freely now. "I never meant for it to go this far." "It always does," William replied softly. When Harry returned to California days later, Meghan saw the change immediately. The distance, the resolve. That night, after the children were asleep, he finally spoke. "I'm done lying," he said. Her face hardened. "You're choosing them over us." "I'm choosing the truth," he replied. "For Archie, for Lilith, for myself." The scream that followed echoed through the mansion, raw and unfiltered. The perfect image cracked at last. Weeks later, a carefully worded statement emerged from Buckingham Palace. No accusations, no names, just an acknowledgement that certain inconsistencies surrounding the circumstances of Archie's birth are under review. The world read between the lines. Markets reacted, headlines exploded, supporters argued, critics rejoiced, and somewhere in the middle stood a little boy whose life had become the center of a storm he never asked for. The monarchy didn't fall, but it shifted. Hard truths forced reforms long whispered about. Trust was shaken, then slowly rebuilt brick by brick. As for Meghan, she disappeared from the spotlight, retreating behind lawyers and NDAs. Her Hollywood comeback stalled, not with a bang, but a quiet fading. Harry remained in California, quieter now, focused on his children rather than headlines. And Tom Bower. He published one final chapter, not with triumph, but with a warning. "Power built on illusion always collapses," he wrote. "And the truth, no matter how delayed, always demands its price." The curtain fell, but the echoes lingered. Proof that even the most carefully constructed fairy tales can't survive when reality finally knocks on the